model car fans. Welcome to the Muscle Car Modeler. My name is Ral. And this week I'm going to feature a build here. This is a 1967 Thunderbird. And this is a two-door. For 67 there have been a number of changes. A whole lot of changes for the Thunderbird. And first they dropped the convertible, so there was no more convertible for 67. 66 was the last year. And they replaced it with the four-door model. And so the four-door, which had the suicide rear doors much like the Lincoln did, replaced the convertible and didn't sell too well. But 67, Ford really went a completely different direction, or instead of going back and forth, because the Thunderbird was the personal luxury car, so it was a sporty but luxury car, which is what they went for, and it had been a four-seater since 58. And that's the cars that I really like, are the originals all the way to 66, all the convertibles. Those are the ones that I really like. So the 67 is kind of a jump for me. But in 67, they went all towards luxury. The car got bigger, it got heavier, weighing in at 4,300 pounds for the two-door, and the four-door was 100 pounds more. It was also the last year for the FE motors and the Thunderbirds. In 68, the 385 series big blocks, the 429, became available in them, but in 67 you can still get the 390 and even the 428. The 428 was available in 66, so really not new for the Thunderbird or anything really special. The 390 was making 315 horsepower and the 428 was making 345 horsepower. So these were not performers. And when it came to the rear axle ratio options, it was either 3.0 or 280. So with those gears, it wasn't a fast car when it came to performance or jumping off the line. And the styling, they went completely different as well. And I kind of go back and forth on the looks here. I like the grille and the hideaway headlights and the way that the bumper kind of loops underneath. But I more like the wraparound and where they don't stick out so much. So to me, this has a fish look to it. I always think of like a big mouth bass. And I think it looks kind of awkward. If it went all the way to the edges of the fenders, I think it would look a little bit better, but it would look more like a Charger than anything else. So this is definitely a unique look. But I don't know. It's grown on me a little bit over the years, but still kind of strange. And the rest of the body still similar with the styling, where I'm not sure if I like it or if I don't. I go back and forth on it. But it's definitely an interesting car. And they were hoping the sales would take off or improve. 67 really wasn't a bad year, with 77,000 made, but there was a lot of competition going along with the car. And things were really just eating into its sales with the Mustang and everything, and all the other competitors like the Riviera and some of the other cars that were competing against it. So Thunderbird was definitely struggling, and they were trying to find new ways to improve the car. They went away from their unibody construction, which is one of the reasons why it got so much heavier. It got a little bit bigger. And matter of fact, it came out in this platform first, and then it was shared with the Lincoln again. This has a full perimeter frame and a separate frame from the body. So previous Thunderbirds were unibodies up to 58. The baby birds, the 55 through 57, had a separate frame, and you could separate it. 67 and 68s had a full separate frame and a separate body, so they went back to body on frame construction, which of course led to the extra weight, which is what I was talking about. There was actually some interesting options, and I found some things kind of different about the car. Now, one of the interesting ones was it came with an AM/FM multiplex radio, but for 67 only, the FM part was actually a separate radio in the console. And it had 4 knobs to control left and right, front and back as far as the multiplex part of it goes. But it had its own separate FM radio and AM radio. And that was the only year they did that. That was quite a different option. And another thing that was available for the first part of 67, but Ford had some issues and they canceled it. And this is the kind of stuff that I kind of like. It had the rolling door locks. And what that meant was in 67, if you ordered this option, it was optional. Don't know how many of them have it or still have it today. But what that meant is you started driving the car at 8 miles an hour and above, the doors would automatically lock. and if you slowed down and went under 8 miles an hour, they would unlock. Quite an interesting feature to have, but there were some issues with it and some stories. One of them I read was about the possibility of the automatic car washes where they pull the car through, and sometimes it would lock and sometimes it wouldn't unlock. But I can't imagine a car wash pulling the vehicle through at 8 miles an hour. But that's just one of the stories that I had read about that, and I kind of find that hard to believe. But and sometime in January of '67, Ford canceled the option. You couldn't order it anymore, and bulletins went out to the dealers on how to disable that and make it the regular door locks instead of the rolling door locks. I found that quite fascinating and got a kick out of that. That was really the only option that I thought was kind of funny. Now, '67, the sunroof was not available. That didn't come out until '69. As far as getting more of the convertible sales or giving the convertible feel. But this car, since it's really not in my area of getting really excited about this particular one, they kind of caught my eye, and I kind of like the styling a little bit of the '67 a little bit. So occasionally I would look at one, but AMT hasn't really produced them in a long time, so it's really just the annual. And occasionally I'd watch and someone would sell and some of them wouldn't sell, and there was one that looked really nice, really decent. I ended up just going for it, and I actually won. So that was in 2016, and I got pictures of what I got, and it was pretty decent build. What I didn't quite catch, and you can kind of see it in the pictures, it really had a texture to it. And once I got it and I stripped the paint off of it, and I got some photos for this, once I got the paint stripped off, there was a lot of texture, and it required quite a bit of sanding, and it was a real similar blue color like this. So it was kind of like I don't know, it was kind of back and forth, and it was somewhat of not too heavy of a glue bomb, but I wasn't sure if I was going to be able to get some of the parts off. So after that and getting the frame apart, it actually came out pretty well, and I'm like, okay, this one still is restorable. Although you can see the glue marks still here in this. This is actually the bottom of the interior tub. It's actually open, and then this is a separate chassis, and it's just got this big gaping hole in it. So you got to glue the interior tub to the chassis, and because of that I was a little worried. And some of the suspension parts, I wasn't sure if they were going to come out so I can get the exhaust out of here. But I did manage to get those parts apart and get it to come apart. So it came out pretty decent, and the front suspension was kind of iffy, but I got all of that apart too and was able to redo it. Some of that stayed in place, so that's why it's just all blacked. I didn't really do a whole lot of detail painting to it. Now I did have to send the wheels out to get chromed, and the front and rear bumper, so Chrome Tech Bob took care of those for me. And and they came out great, but they kind of needed, they were a little dull, but they weren't bad. And this taillight lens was a big nervous wreck for me, because some of these are really glued in, and they're really in there. But for some reason, this particular one, it wasn't glued in, it just popped right out. Like the original builder did not glue it in, so it was real easy to remove the taillight lens, and that's one of the things that really made me think, okay, this one's going to be pretty good. And I used the original tires. So once I got it apart and got the chrome done, the last thing was, alright, now I need to do something with the body. And since I wasn't all that excited about it, I'm like, I wanted it to be a nice, luxurious color and just go with a nice, decent interior. And the interior on this is actually pretty nice. It gives you the full-length console. I went with the white seats and a white dash with a black dash pad, which is what I saw in the reference photos. So I went ahead and duplicated what I saw there in some reference photos. And it came out pretty nice. I was pretty happy with it. And then I just picked a blue that was in my paints and just went with that. And the paint actually went on pretty good after doing all the body work and a lot of sanding to get all of those, the texture out of it, which I wasn't sure if the emblems were going to come out. So the emblems are okay, fairly decent. Foil brought them out a little bit, but they're a little blended in a little bit because of that. But it wasn't much I can do about that. And then put the mirrors on, and then you foil all around all of this back panel here, and then the rocker moldings. And another thing that I found out about 67 and 68s, there's no body side molding. Ford had offered body side moldings on the 64 to 66s, but in 67 and 68, they were not available and became available again in 69, and you could order them. So there are a lot of cars where there's a molding put on there, and a lot of dealers had added stick-on moldings, and many of them come off over the years, but I had seen a number of them with the moldings, but I had read that or they were not available, but a lot of dealers had added them. So another thing when I was building this, it has the FE motor, and it's a pretty nice motor. So I built it, I'm going to say it's the 428, but there are no decals, and the firewall's pretty far back. And, typical, there's a manual tranny there. I don't believe a manual tranny was available in the 67 Thunderbird at all. So there's a real nice manual tranny there, but it is what it is. But I don't recall a manual tranny being available in the 67. It may be maybe super rare 3-speed, but don't believe so. If I remember right, the entire interior is automatic. If you can even see the pedals in there. But no shifter at all. So anyway, I figured I would kind of pull out one of my restorations that actually came out pretty decent. I got some photos that will be posted at the end of this as well, so you can see what I started with and some of the progress, but there wasn't a whole lot done to this one as far as picture taking, because it was something I just wanted to do and get done, and she came out really nice. So I'm really happy with it and the paint job, especially after I got the paint stripped off and saw what it looked like. But definitely not one of my favorite Thunderbirds, kind of far from it, but not a horrible car. It's just, to me, it's like doesn't really excite me that much. And I really don't see them anymore. I don't remember the last time I've seen one of these, especially with that fish front end. And then in 71 or 70 and 71, they really went to the beak front end on them. And I know there's some kits of those too. But this one was definitely controversial and a strange styling setup. And I still don't know how I feel about that front end and that grille. There's a lot of it I really like, but they just, with it really sticking out here on the fenders, like, I don't know. But still, the model came out really nice. I'm happy that I've restored it and pretty happy with the results. So show you guys and see what you think now that it's been done about 5 years, and it's the newest Thunderbird I've got, and I've got all the ones before that, but I really don't have any interest in finding any 68 or 69s. But thank you for tuning in, subscribing, and all your comments. I really appreciate it. And you guys, you have a wonderful weekend, and I'll see you next Saturday.